Today, our reading focuses mainly on the construction of the Mishkan. There's a lot of commentary about the meaning of the Mishkan and why God ordained this. The Rambam, Nachmanides, said that this was God's attempt to continue the Sinai encounter beyond just that time at the mountain. One visit with Israel was not enough for Hashem. He wanted to continue. He wanted to basically move in with us, have his own drawer in the closet or the bathroom. In Midrash Rabbah, it quotes Exodus 25, says, "Let them make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell among them." And then it goes on to say, it does not say in it, but it says among them, in each and every one of them. It's not just a physical structure, but it's Hashem wanting intimacy with each and every person of Israel. The Zohar, that mystical text of commentary on the Torah, likens it, the Mishkan, to the chuppah, that this is a wedding that's happening between God and Israel. Abraham Joshua Heschel said that spiritual life is not just about humanity longing for God, but God longing for us. This is expressed in our mitzvah barucha formula that we use all the time. Blessed are you, ... he who ... Blessed are you, God, King of the universe, he who gave us the Torah, for example. The blessed are you is addressing God directly. This is expressing his immanence in our presence, but then it shifts to the he who does so and so, expressing also his transcendence. And then, of course, we have at the very end of the book of Revelation, where it says, "Behold, the dwelling place of God is with humanity. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God." This is the culmination of the ultimate culmination of God's desire to live with us. The word Mishkan itself is indicative of this. It comes from the root word shin kaf nun, shachan, which means to dwell. He wants to dwell in our presence. This is also the root of Shekhinah. It's that feminine aspect of God that dwells with the people of Israel even in their suffering. But having said all that, I'd not like to focus on that. I'd like to focus on another angle, a different aspect, and that is of us becoming a Mishkan. Our vocation as Jews, and especially as Messianic Jews, is to bring God's presence into the lives of others. In the Tanya, that text, a Hasidic text, it says, when a person creates space for God, he becomes a mikdash ma'at, a small sanctuary. Rav Kook says the goal of this life is not to escape it, but to bring the light of Torah to everyday life. We become vessels of God's presence. The Baal Shem Tov said that every kind word, every welcoming of a stranger builds a hidden brick in that heavenly Mishkan. And he goes on to say, wherever a person walks, they are bringing the Shekhinah with them. Years ago, and I've talked about this before, I was reading Michael Vishegrad's book, The Body of Faith, and towards the end, he starts talking about what a tzaddik is. And he says, a tzaddik, a righteous person. And he says, to put it simply, one felt God's presence in his presence. Such people eliminated their egos and lived to serve God and their fellow human being. They love those with whom they come into contact. Those who came into their presence found themselves transformed. They knew that for the tzaddik, they were a unique person and no one else. To enter into the presence of the tzaddik was the closest approximation available to entering into the presence of God. This type of encounter is described in many texts of people encountering the Baal Shem Tov himself. One person said, "I didn't go to hear him speak about Torah. I went to see how he tied his shoes," because just everything was infused with this love of God and holiness. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the former, he's passed away some years ago, blessed memory, the former chief rabbi of Great Britain, had this incredible encounter with the Lubavitcher Rebbe when he was a younger man. And he went to him wanting to decide what his future was. And he says, and I quote, "I went to ask a question. Instead, I was being asked one. In his presence, I felt myself challenged to become more than I thought I could be." I have to admit, I'm kind of jealous of these guys because I too have always felt this call to be that kind of presence, but I just can't seem to get it down. And it's something that I just keep striving for over and over again. I'm humbled by constant falling short of this aspiration. But it's so important. Yeshua said, "When 2 or 3 are gathered, I'm there in their midst." God is in the midst of our relationships. So how do we become a Mishkan? How do we have such an impact on others? How do we bring God's loving presence? Well, I've been meditating and praying about this a lot lately and reading many different texts. And I've come to coin a term that I may change later, but it's a working title for myself now: intentional, compassionate engagement. First of all, to become a Mishkan, the presence of God in this world, is embedded in Michael Visegrád's statement, setting aside the ego. This is something critical for us to do. Most of us, most of the time, myself included, come to personal encounters preoccupied with our own wants and desires and needs and concerns, whether we realize it or not. And I think that's the beauty of such people that are able to be fully present to others as they set aside those things and truly encounter the person. We cannot be truly present to others. We cannot bring God when we're not completely focused on them. We must be fully present to them as God is fully present to us. We must join in Yeshua saying, "Come to me, all you who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Second, I think we have to train our minds to see each and every human being as God's child. We talk about this, and it's like a fact in your head, but in a day in, day out, heat of the moment, you're not always thinking about this. But indeed, everyone we encounter, whether it's a clerk at the store or a coworker or a family member, they are a child of God, deserving of whatever goodness you can bring them. This is us bringing God's presence to them. And how can we be that presence, that Mishkan? God's words need to resonate in our souls. "This is my beloved child in whom I am well pleased." And third, this is an important one, we need to set aside our thinking about their foibles. People can be unpleasant and ugly in their own self-focus and concerns about their own needs and wants and troubles. And it's easy for us to dismiss them, mistreat them, and ignore them. We need to develop empathy. Everyone that we encounter has a backstory that most of which is hidden to us. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow said, "If we could but read the secret history of our enemies, we should find in each man's life sorrow and suffering enough to disarm all hostility." I have found that when I'm in that space and able to focus, it's very helpful to take on the role of father. This is that intentional part of this, intentionally adopting the role of father, so that we could see people even in their foibles as God's beloved children. You know, children get absorbed with inconsequential things. Those of us who have had kids know this, right? Things happen that just seem to crush their little worlds, and we're standing there going, this isn't that critical of a thing, but you have compassion on them because to them in that moment, kid's nodding his head. I remember one time years ago when Samuel was very little, I had bought him one ring from the Lord of the Rings, and he lost it in the backyard. And we combed that backyard looking and looking for that thing and never found it. It's probably still laying there. And he was absolutely devastated and crushed, you know. And I'm standing there thinking, you know, I understand, but this is not that, you know, you're not bleeding, you haven't lost a limb, you know, life's good. We have to understand that for people, they can get caught up in these things as well, and to have compassion on them and understand this. This stance produces detachment for us, but it's a loving detachment, just as we are with our children. Yeshua's words need to resonate in our souls. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Sforno, in his commentary about the Mishkan, said, "Note that God insisted on the Mishkan being built and dwelling with the people of Israel in spite of the fact that they had just sinned with the golden calf." And this is what we need to do with other people as well. Fourth and finally, we cannot be a Mishkan for others if we're not making a space in our hearts for Hashem. We need to come prepared. And I think that is the real genius of these people who are able to do this, is they lead lives of quiet and contemplation and prayer to the point that their spirits are calm enough that they can encounter others truly. We cannot truly be a Mishkan if we're not regularly present to God ourselves. We need a life of prayer and meditation and self-reflection. These are essential. We need to dwell in that place on a day-to-day basis where we can hear him say, "You are my beloved child in whom I am well pleased," because it's out of this place that flows life and love to others. And this is a skill. What I'm talking about here is a skill that has to be developed like any other skill. Studies have shown that we rewire our brains, literally rewire our brains chemically, when we adopt certain habits. This is what happens with addiction, right? Your brain gets rewired to dependency on that, whatever it may be. We can rewire our brains with that intentional focus on compassion in order to just habitually be this way. I have set my heart on this, knowing that I'm probably not going to do very well, but maybe a little better each year, each month. And so this past week, I wrote myself a morning aspiration that I want to get laminated and have it by my bedside or at my desk. And this is what I came up with. I wake in the presence of the Father who gives breath to my lungs and mercy to my soul. Today I choose to be present to God, my Father, who dwelt with us in the Mishkan and now dwells in the stillness of my heart. I choose to be Mishkan, present to others, not as obstacles, but as his beloved children, each one bearing his image. And I choose to be present to myself with grace, with gentleness, and with love. Let the Father's heart shape mine. Let peace steady me. Let compassion lead me. Let joy surprise me. Blessed are you, Lord our God, divine presence within me, who dwells in my heart and makes me a Mishkan of love. May we all set aside our egos. May we all train our minds to engage with others with intentional compassion. May we all be father to his beloved children. And then we will truly be a Mishkan, God's presence in this world. Shabbat Shalom.